former Fulton County District Attorney and Sheriff.
Formerly a judge, and he knows a little bit about how these things go.
From Mohawk Valley, legal eagle, lawman.
He is the Sheriff of Fulton County, New York. Just such an amazing guy.
This is the Rich Giardino Show, where the Constitution, crime, and politics meet.
Welcome to the Rich Giardino Show. Thanks for joining us today. Where the Constitution, crime, and politics meet. That's our catchphrase. And we're on YouTube, X, Spotify, Apple, Facebook, and any other premium platform. Today, my co-host is Jenna Roth, and Jenna and I have done a series on missing persons in cold cases. We're going to talk today about two cases that are linked but not linked. They're linked only by the nature of the person who was missing and the deceased person in the other case. They're about prosecutors. One's a federal prosecutor, John Luna, and one was a state prosecutor, Ray Gricar. But before we talk about that, Jenna, let's talk a little bit about when people go missing in this country, because we know every day there's 100,000 reports or more of people missing. Most of them become unfounded. The person is found. But what are some of the common reasons? And then let's exclude kidnapping. Other than kidnapping, what are the most common reasons that people want to disappear, get off the grid, or whatever?
Sure. I mean, it could be anywhere from a voluntary disappearance. So that could be that they want to start over. They want to start fresh. Maybe they're not happy in their life and they just want to leave and not say anything, tell anyone. And that happens more often than you think. And there's also sometimes people with mental health, they're could commit suicide and tell no one, and no one finds them.
So the two cases that you've studied up for today and today's program involve a federal prosecutor, John Luna, and a state prosecutor, Ray Gricar. Why don't you start and tell us a little bit about the background, and you can go in either order, whichever you're comfortable with, and
Sure.
Tell us the details and the current status.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ray Gricar, he was the district attorney at the time in Center County, Pennsylvania, when he disappeared. With his case, he is a missing person, and he took the day off from work one day, wanted to go for a drive, and he was never seen again.
But where did they find? Now they found his vehicle and things. How far from where he was working or home?
Right. So they found his red Mini Cooper. It was near a river where they found it. His laptop was not in the vehicle. His cell phone was not in the vehicle. And this happened he went missing on April 15th of 2005.
So what's critical about that is in 2005, they didn't have the technology that we do now as far as tracking phones and pods and all that. So when they found him, was there any indication of any notes or anything to indicate it was a decision to take off?
Right. So they never found his body. They only found his vehicle. But there was no indication that he wanted to leave, or that maybe he was wanted, to disappear voluntarily, not tell anyone. Was there a mental health issue happening that no one was aware of? So he left no indication of what happened and where he went.
Were there any scandals with him going on at work, or any concerns that he had at work?
No. By all accounts, he was well liked. He was very intelligent, but he did try some very serious cases with serious crimes. So of course, with him being a prosecutor, you're always going to look at the cases that he's worked on. Was it someone that maybe he had convicted and they're angry with him? But again, by all accounts, they had no one to link his disappearance to.
Was he married with kids or anything? Any marital problems?
No, so he was not married at the time of his disappearance. He had a girlfriend. And again, by all accounts, everything seemed okay in their relationship.
Now, I want to talk in a second about the connection between and I'm not suggesting, because we don't know if he committed suicide or why he disappeared, but I want to talk about suicide because that does play a role in many individuals who are initially reported missing, and they either not found or then found to have committed suicide or taken their own life. Before I do that, I want to let our listeners know you're listening to the Rich Giardino Show, where the Constitution, crime, and politics meet. We're on Apple, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, X, and a variety of other high premium platforms that host such podcasts. We ask you to like, share, and subscribe, and particularly share these missing person cases and cold cases with others who may have a link to solving them. There was one case that Jenna discussed where a man and his wife were driving cross country, and she was listening to the podcast. Not my podcast, but a podcast on missing individuals and cold cases. And her husband had worked in an area where it happened years before at the time. And he had provided a clue, correct, Jenna, as to who may have committed the crime, and they closed it out, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the clue he called in was the missing piece in their case. And sometimes it's something as small as that. And that's why it is so important to share podcasts, to share these cold cases, missing person cases, because you never know who's going to be listening on the other end.
So tell us a little bit that there is a link between individuals. And again, I want a disclaimer because we're not saying Mr. Gricar committed suicide, because we don't know. But what happens if somebody in a family commits suicide? Does the odds increase to other members of the family? Or what do we know from research?
Sure. So yes, it does increase. They refer it to as first degree relatives of someone. It could be a parent, a sibling, a child that has committed suicide, that it does increase the likeliness that a family member will also commit. And it's a 2 to 5 times higher risk, which is pretty high.
It's very, very high. And a lot of that is probably underlying mental health issues and just exacerbated by it, or feelings of guilt. That why did the person take their life? Well, we have a situation where if you lose a child in a car accident or to cancer, you suffer just as much as the suicide. But in a car accident or cancer, you have a different view of how they died than if somebody takes their life, because then you're questioning, what could I have done? Why didn't I see it? What could I have done different? So we have studies on those, study after study, books written, interviews given, that there's a guilt factor of that the living relatives missed something that could have made a difference, or should have listened to more, or done something. So that's kind of sad. Absolutely. So what I'm wondering is, like, there must be like a stigma, like a guy like Ray Gricar, let's just say he wanted a break. He wanted to get away from everything. He didn't want to just take a 2-week vacation. He needs to know, and other people need to know, that the stigma of remaining hidden or out of view or changing your identity, while it might seem like a good fix, there's a lot of damage every day to those people who loved or cared about these people. And they need to know that if they come forward, people are going to be more relieved than angry, because I think some of it is, well, I don't want everybody hating me because I'm not dead. Well, that's a weird way of looking at it, Yeah. They want closure. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Of course.
So he's still in the missing category. What about the phone? And at some point you said that you told me while we were prepping that they found his laptop and his phone. Was it an office laptop or phone, and where was it found?
So I haven't read where they deciphered between it being a work laptop or was it his personal. That I'm not sure, but in July of 2005, they found the the hard drive to the laptop in the river that his car was found near. And then in October of 2005, a couple fishermen found the actual laptop itself, but it was far too damaged. They could not get any information off of it. So unfortunately, there were no clues to when they found that.
Yeah. And in today's society with license plate readers and cameras all over and in stores and things, we would have had a better take. Do you recall from your research in this case whether anyone where he parked the vehicle saw him or saw anyone else with him, or what's the last physical sighting you remember that they said?
Yeah, so he did contact his girlfriend that morning, but that was via phone, just letting her know that he was taking the day off. He was going for a drive. Other than that, there's been no there were still surveillance cameras, but maybe they weren't as good, but there was no footage of him anywhere other than just finding the vehicle.
Did she say he was prone to just take days off randomly and drive around, or was it unusual, or don't you know?
I don't know specifically anything with that, but I know that, I mean, she was also, so going back to, what could have possibly happened to him, was it foul play? There was a report that there were some searches on her computer at home about laptops, and they never were able to connect her, and she was never a suspect.
Mm-hmm.
So
all right. And just so that the listeners know, you would just have a passion for listening to podcasts, whodunits, cold cases, and missing individuals. But anything you tell us is from published reports, some most verified by the police, others maybe not, but statements of individuals who knew the individual in the newspaper or on TV or stuff, correct?
yes, absolutely.
Okay. Is there a website for people who are still trying to find Ray, or does he not?
So you can contact, I haven't found a website, but you can contact the Pennsylvania State Police, their Rockview station. And there is a number with that. It's 814-355-7545.
Okay. You're listening to a special edition of the Rich Giardino Show with Jenna Roth. Jenna has researched two prosecutors, one who had turned up dead and one who's been missing since 2004 or 5. And we're going to get into the second one, but you can listen to our podcasts on X, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Facebook, and any other premium podcast platforms. Jenna, let's talk about the other case with John Luna. John Luna was a federal prosecutor who had worked late at the office, and was it Philadelphia?
Yes. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, he was in Baltimore, Maryland.
Oh, Baltimore, Maryland.
Yes.
But he ended up, they found his body in Pennsylvania also, correct?
Correct.
All right. So tell us the background of Jonathan Luna then, and the circumstances.
Yeah, of course. So he went, he was working in the office late. He didn't leave until around 11:30 p.m. Now, he was married. He had 2 children. By all accounts, he should not have been going anywhere after that except to go home. They were able to track as best they could the route he took, and it was very odd and almost like going in circles until they eventually found him in Pennsylvania. He was found stabbed 36 times. So it's definitely a very violent crime that had happened. And at first, maybe they thought he committed suicide as well, because he was going through some, rough times with work and, with money.
Tell us about the investigations at work now. So he worked on high profile gang cases and violent cases, right?
Right. Yep. And so with work, it was just, there was a case that he was working on that there was money in the evidence locker. The money went missing. Now, so some people may speculate that maybe that's why he left. He took off. Maybe he did commit suicide. However, everyone in that office was being asked questions about that money. It wasn't just him. And what happened in his case was a lot of information came out that I think, really made people have a different view of him. They, exposed that he had credit card debt that his wife didn't know about or wasn't aware about. So they were making it seem as if he had something to run away from.
Okay. So one of the things that's interesting is manner of death and cause of death are two phrases that are used by pathologists and coroners in the medical profession. And a manner of death is how they died. The cause of death is what caused their actual death. So and I've had cases and we've researched cases, suicide by self stabbing is very rare, but it does happen. And it's often there are multiple wounds because an individual doesn't just go out, stab themselves. They start slowly. And I'm distinguishing that from slitting your wrist or slitting your arm or slitting your neck with a razor. Stabbing, while uncommon, does occur. And the distinction that the pathologist told me they use is there in a stabbing suicide, there's no self-defense wounds. In other kinds of deaths, there would be self-defense wounds, which are stab wounds coming at the person or on their hands or on their arms when they try to deflect it. So you may see the cause of death as the cause of death may be by stab wounds and bleeding out or whatever, but the method would be homicide, suicide, or unknown. So homicide is at the hands of another. And that's why it's confusing to people, because if a police officer shoots somebody, if it's a justified shoot, it would still say homicide because it was the hands of somebody else. It doesn't mean that they're guilty or going to be charged with murdering somebody. It just means that the action which brought about the death was caused by someone else. It wasn't self-induced. And with John Luna, they did I think that they had cameras maybe from the toll booths and only saw one person in the car. Is that correct?
That's correct. They also discovered that there was another vehicle. So they stopped at a gas station. Well, I say we don't know if there was people with him. His vehicle was seen at a gas station. There was a car that was closely following behind it. They don't know if that car possibly was, someone that was trying to harm him. He also charged his car twice at the gas station. So it looks like he filled up his car twice. Obviously, you can't do that. So did he have a gas can with him? Was the person behind him? Did he do a nice deed for someone? They're not sure. But what they do know is they did find his vehicle. It was in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, around 5:30 a.m. the next morning. And he was found partially submerged in the shallow creek near his vehicle.
Near the vehicle or in the vehicle?
Near.
Okay. So one of the things is it probably wouldn't be uncommon if somebody were going to take their life to drive around and think about it.
Right.
It's a hard decision for some people. It's a mental health component. It's weighing, what's going to happen. And if you have a wife and financial problems and an office and you think that they think you stole money, that might be a lot of weight. But again, that's speculation on our part. Right. Nothing was ever concluded. Has there been any movement on this case since in the last few years?
There hasn't. There has been no new leads. And again, like with Gricar, they also looked into people that he, helped in their conviction. But that night when he was there, he was helping, I say helping, but he was making a plea deal with two individuals. So, because at first they thought, well, maybe they were angry with him, but they would really have no reason to be if he's helping them with a plea deal. And his, and his wife, his family has said that they don't think it's suicide. He wasn't that type of, he always seemed happy. He loved his children. He loved his wife. So at home, he was happy. No indication that self-harm would have, occurred. But again, you don't know what people are feeling and going through, and they keep it to themselves.
Okay. Now we can take tips on these, but where else should they contact directly if they have information?
So with his case, it's actually the PA Crime Stoppers, and they're 1-800-4-PA-TIPS, but the number itself is 1-800-472-8477.
What's that number again, please?
1-800-472-8477.
So we ask people to please like and share this. Share this with as many people as you can, because you never know when somebody may have a piece of the puzzle didn't even think anything of it. They might have seen him at a gas station. Again, what year was this? 2003.
Mm-hmm.
They might have bumped into him since that. They might have bumped into somebody since this who had information. So, Jenna, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for the research and the updates on these cases. Again, thanks for listening to the Rich Giardino Show, where the Constitution, crime, and politics meet. Please like and share this to as many people as you can. We'll call it a wrap for this program. And thanks for listening to one in our special series of cold cases and missing individual cases.
Like and subscribe to The Rich Giardino Show, part of the Elite Influencer Network, wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll see you next time on The Rich Giardino Show, where the Constitution, crime, and politics meet.